This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to SportsDay Insider presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pals Evan Grant and David Moore. So we got a big week here in baseball. The Rangers start up on Thursday. We're going to talk about that and what's happening with their roster right now and what some of our projections might be. We're in the middle of the NCAA tournament. We're in August, the Sweet 16. We'll have a little bit about that too. But we're going to open up now with the Cowboys with the draft coming up next month, a little less than a month away. Things start to clarify a little bit after we see what teams have done in free agency. A couple more names have come off the boards there. Stephon Diggs got a 3-year, $69 million deal with the Patriots, which is pretty steep for a guy with his medical history and just his history in general. A really good receiver, but that was a little steep. So it made me wonder, David, if the Cowboys were still interested at all in Amari Cooper, if he'd come with that kind of price tag.
Well, that contract puts it in perspective, right? I know in free agency, a lot of fans kind of take a fantasy approach. It's like, well, Stephon Diggs is out there. Get him, pair him with, CeeDee Lamb and see what you could do, which is intriguing until you see the financial hit that is required to do it and you have to absorb. And remember, you're talking about putting someone with CeeDee Lamb, which means by definition, they're going to be the second receiver, not the top receiver. And when you start paying when you have the highest paid quarterback in the league, the third highest paid receiver, and you're about to have the highest paid defensive player in the league on your roster, throwing $23 million at the second receiver spot is a pretty big ask, and still filling out your roster the way it needs to be filled out. So that's where and I know everyone goes, well, the Cowboys can do it, other teams do it. Do other teams really do it? Look at how they're, look at their rosters and how the money's dispersed. And I think they're willing to spend some more at receiver and need to, but certainly not up to that level. Now, when you get into the, Amari Cooper still out there, would he make sense? Now you're almost to the point of, well, if guys like this don't sign, do you wait until the draft and see if you get the receiver you want and then come back and get the veteran in here? Still a lot of time before that, but some of the veteran receivers on the market will take that approach, like, well, I'm going to wait until after the draft. These teams won't get the receiver they wanted, and then I'll get the closer to the money I want. So we'll see how it plays out. I am convinced they want to add a receiver with the potential to be the second receiver, whether through the draft or in free agency. So that's still on their to-do list.
Yeah, of course, I've been campaigning for them to bring back Amari Cooper. It's my new Earl Thomas thing, I think, and that worked out so well.
Well, Cooper's here before and has a good relationship with CeeDee Lamb. He has a good relationship with Dak Prescott, and they have a good rapport. Cooper is a very nice look. When they were here before, technically, Amari Cooper was the lead receiver and CeeDee Lamb was the second receiver because that was a rookie, early in his career. They would shift those roles, but temperamentally, Amari Cooper wouldn't have an issue with that. In fact, in many ways, we've talked about it before. Cooper's approach is not what you see from a classic lead receiver in this league. Maybe doesn't have that edge and that ego that a lot of the lead receivers have. So he would be, I think, perfectly content and adapt to a second receiver role, and there would be no issues at all. It'll just be what is the cost, and are the Cowboys more inclined to say, well, no, let's get a young player in here from the draft and develop them, and which would be a more cost efficient way to proceed. But you have to be careful when you're always talking about the most cost efficient way, because that doesn't always make you a better team. that gives you more cap flexibility. But if you don't make the right moves with that flexibility, what do you really gain from it competitively? So I think that argument is used too much by the Cowboys sometimes. And well, this is more a cost efficient way to go about it. Well, yeah, it is, but now you're not as good of a product on the field either. So are you willing to make that trade off?
Yeah, that's why it feels to me in this draft, just because of what you just said, the cost at wide receiver has gone up so much over the
Yeah.
last 2 or 3 years, more so than any other. The inflation at wide receiver is just off
It
the
exploded
charts.
more than any other position. Yeah.
It,
Quarterback has been going up, but the quarterback contracts still exceed that, obviously, but they've kind of gone up in a stair step measure. Receivers just exploded about 10 million beyond what they were, and basically in one cycle, which is you rarely see in that much of a deviation.
Yeah, so because of that, I do feel like the Cowboys. If I were just to say right now what the Cowboys will take, and let's just say that nothing crazy happened in those first 11 picks, and one of those really top players didn't drop to them like Ashton Genty or let's say Mason Graham or Travis Hunter, and that's not going to happen. And then I don't think they're going to take any of the quarterbacks either. So unless one of those guys drop down, I really do feel like they will probably take a wide receiver, and that would be the Teteroa McMillan of Arizona. Is pretty much everybody's number one receiver, if you don't count Travis Hunter as a receiver. He's big. He's been compared to Keyshawn Johnson. Not a burner. Ran a little more than a 4.5, but he's got really good hands, very reliable, going 50-50 balls. He seems to me exactly the kind of receiver that the Cowboys are kind of aiming for. I'm sure they'd like to have somebody who was really fast that could take the top off a defense, like maybe a Matthew Golden. But McMillan is got that wide catch radius, wins 50-50 balls. That's something they could really use. So I could see them doing that. My problem with it is because unless they sign Amari Cooper, if they were able to do something like that, in my mind, David, their biggest need is at cornerback because of the loss of Jordan Lewis, because of the injury to Trayvon Diggs. Um, you know, that Kaiir Elam from Buffalo wasn't even starting for the Bills. So are they really going to run him across from Deron Bland? And even if they do that, they're still thin at the position. So to
Very.
me, because of what they were unable to do to fill that position on defense, that seems to me to be their number one need. And that's why I would at 12 take Jahdae Barron of Texas, who can play a little bit of everything back there. He can play inside, outside. He can even play safety if you want. He's very productive at Texas. Had 5 interceptions this year. The Thorpe Award winner. He's a first team All American. He's a really smart kid. Calvin Watkins was down at Texas Pro Day yesterday and talked to him. You can read that interview and see how smart he is and what a team player he is. I covered a lot of Texas games over the last 2 years, and always very impressive young man. I think he would go over really big in
And what
this
did he say?
locker.
He was a chemstatic learner.
Something like that. I have no idea what that meant. Of course,
Yeah,
he could
where
have
I
said it.
guess it's where you're with your senses and chemically you is your chemical perception factors into your learning with the sense of touch. So
Yeah, that was me. That was the kind of learner I was. I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I was a learner at all. But anyway, we'll see. I do think he's really a bright kid. So to me, you take him in the first round. So I ran my own first 3 rounds of the draft. I referenced 2016 when I said the Cowboys should take Jalen Ramsey with the 4th pick and come back in the 2nd round with Derrick Henry, which, as it
mhm.
turns out, they could have had both of those players, which would have been pretty nice. They of course took Zeke Elliott and Jalen Smith, and the Zeke part worked out pretty well. Not so much with Jalen, uh, but I also had to point out in there that don't ask me what I recommended since then. I forget. Uh, but one time I
Selective
was right.
amnesia. Yes,
Yeah,
it
selective
comes in
amnesia.
handy. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But
just like
anyway,
selectively aggressive. Stephen
yes.
Jones used to selectively aggressive. We use selective amnesia when we look back when he's trying.
Correct. So in the 2nd round, I had them just taking any one of a number of wide receivers. The problem for them, to me, and the Cowboys in this draft is that clearly, if they're not going to sign Amari Cooper or another wide receiver, Keenan Allen, someone like that, they're going to have to draft a wide receiver that they can, start. And then in
Yeah,
the
and really not wait till the third round or, the
no,
third
there's not
day.
enough. There's not enough wide receivers out
Because
there
then
that
you're
can
getting
really
a
play.
developmental guy usually in the third, and is it going to be that much different than Jalen Tolbert, who was also taken in that? So then you get into you throw a number at it, but you're not really upgrading the position this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I had Cam Scatterbo in the third round. He's kind of a little bit of my pet project. I liked him before. And then after, he practically wrecked Texas all by himself in that playoff game. A different kind of back. People are not going to like him because he's not fast. And they're going to wonder, can he carry that style into the NFL where he loves contact? I think those are legitimate questions. I don't question anything else about him. I don't question his desire or his, as one AFC executive told one scouting group, he plays running back like a linebacker. I think that would really go over in this market. I think if he came here, he would be a fan favorite immediately. Not that that's why you should take him, but I do think with some of the signings they made at running back in free agency, it would allow you to play a guy like this, and he wouldn't have to play three downs for you necessarily, at least right away. You could probably do a little bit of that running back by committee business, and I think it might even work for you. Having said that, and taking those three guys, David, something we need to talk about here is that the Cowboys, with their Texas Day, apparently did talk to Quinn Ewers. Quinn's, I think Quinn's probably a little bit all over the map. You never can tell with quarterbacks. He's not going to be a first rounder. He could go in the second round. It might be later than that. But the Cowboys need to draft a quarterback because they've let Cooper Rush go. And they have kind of more or less just said, well, we're probably going to get our backup quarterback out of the draft. If I'm going to draft one that's going to be a developmental quarterback, I'm taking Jalen Milroe of Alabama, a really smart kid, a really, really good athlete, really good throwing a deep ball, not as good at the stuff underneath. And he's certainly a project. He could not walk in any NFL locker room and become a starter right away.
Now, would you take him on day 2, though? Because that's probably where you're going to have to take him. It wouldn't be
And
day 3. You're
that's the
going to
problem.
probably have to take him in the, into the second or third round.
See, that's the
because
problem.
all those quarterbacks. Look, I think, you mentioned Milroe. I think Ewers is another guy. When the people I look at who grade the draft who have a very good track record that I respect, when I look at where they all line up, those guys, just in terms of sheer talent, are third round. Maybe even top of the fourth, right in that range, like 3.5 to 4, right in there. Quarterbacks, especially in a year where you have so few, I would argue that second tier is going to jump even more. Usually a quarterback goes around before they're, outside of the first round quarterbacks, they go about a round before their pure talent dictates, because the upside, the risk reward ratio is different for them than it is other positions. So I don't know that yours gets out of the second round, same
He
with
might
Milroe.
not. And
Yeah.
that's my issue with it is with the Cowboys. If they were in better shape, if they
You could do
had,
that then, but I don't see how they could do it. It's going to be tough for them to take a quarterback in day 2, in my mind, with where they are and what their needs are.
and if you're not taking a quarterback in day 2, then what are you taking?
Yeah, and so what?
That's
And
the
now you don't have a fourth round pick, and you have all those fifths, so you throw another fifth at the position. But again, it's by and large just a number. You're just having, you're addressing quantity, not quality at that point. And yeah, I think you're right. You hit on the cornerback. I agree completely. Trayvon Diggs will be back this year. What level will he be able to perform? This is 2 seasons ended by knee injuries. What level is he going to be? Like you said, Elam lost his starting job and only started, I believe, 4 games maybe this past season for Buffalo. Now, Buffalo was good defensively, but I will say this. Usually when you take a first-round corner and he doesn't hit, you don't see him reclaim his career somewhere else. You see it sometimes on other positions. You adjust the expectations, and a guy can have a nice career. But I think there's something about that position. Once a cornerback is exposed and his confidence is hurt, and especially at that position where you're going to get beat, is clear to everyone, and you have to keep coming back. Um, you rarely see those guys, kind of rebound once they've been knocked down a peg. So yeah, I think they've left themselves in a position where they do have to take a corner high, but now suddenly they also need a running back and a wide receiver. So if you don't go cornerback, running back, and wide receiver in some combination in your first 2 days of the draft, I think you really leave yourself exposed. Now, there's another thing here you could do. You could probably use 12 to tumble back maybe once or twice and pick up another, third round pick or two or something like that. And so that now suddenly you go from 3 picks in the first 2 days to four, and maybe you still hit the sweet spot on the receivers. Maybe you feel 12 is too high for the receivers or the corners clustered there, but you move back to 18. Now suddenly a running back, a corner, and a receiver all there you like, and you pick up an additional third, and you can use that on another position. I mean, though, I think those are serious discussions that I know those are serious discussions the Cowboys are going to have in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and of course, they're famous for that. Not so much. Well, I guess they still have done it. They traded back, and that's not how they took Micah Parsons at 12.
Yeah.
They traded that pick back when they weren't going to get Patrick Surtain, who went to the Broncos, kind of unexpectedly. I don't have a problem with them trading back if the way things are looking and the guy that maybe that they didn't like was right there. The problem is that everybody says that there's probably only really 14 or 15 first round grade talents in this draft, and that doesn't mean a guy can't drop. What happens there if teams start taking quarterbacks, then the better players who were those premium quality players start to drop a little bit. So it kind of does fudge the thing a little bit. I don't have a big problem with them doing that. I just would hate to see them reach in the first round
Yeah.
by taking a guy that
Just
they
add another guy, so you have four in the
yeah,
top 100
yeah.
versus three. Yeah.
I like to think they had a plan. That would be good. I'm not sure I see the
Well, if
plan
you're
right
going to
at the
hold them to
moment,
that,
David. Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know that I see the plan right now. Because there's players you can take everywhere. I mean, I hate to get too Texas centric, but I saw them play a lot. I could see who could play and who couldn't play. I really like Alfred Collins. I think if he were available in the second or third round, he'd be a nice defensive tackle. I think he's a good run stopper. You know, and speaking of that, David, that's another name I brought up. Why isn't Calais Campbell? Why hasn't anybody signed him? He made $2 million last year. According to Pro Football Focus, he was the number one defensive tackle against the run,
run.
and he
Yeah.
had 5.5 sacks. I
Yeah.
mean, that's Pro Bowl type performance. Now he's 38 years old; he'll be 39 this fall. But at $2 million a year, the Cowboys couldn't use him.
I can still see that as a guy that winds up signing. Sometimes those guys think because of look, and Campbell knows his market's diminished, but I think he's also saying, well, look how productive I've been, even at this stage of my career when I'm doing these, one off contracts. I'm still performing, I'm putting up good numbers. That's got to be worth something. But again, you said it, 38 years old, that's it. And people are going to go, well, we're only going to pay that much because, you know, we can develop a guy because we're still going to need a guy, going forward. But Campbell, I would not dismiss him because look, the, the Cowboys talk about wanting to get better against the run. I don't know that they signed a lot of. I don't know how much they upgraded their run defense with what they've done here in free agency. And I'm not sure how much you will be able to do that in the draft with rookies unless you take a defensive tackle at 12. And because of their other needs, I don't know that they're. Look, I think there'll be defensive tackles at 12 worth taking. But now suddenly, so you're going to take a defensive tackle in the first round in 2 of the last 3 years after basically you've ignored the position when you have some of these other crying needs. I don't think they will do that. So yeah, I would think Campbell's still a guy. Like I said, Diggs started this third wave of free agency, if you will, of name guys who you're a little surprised are still there. Now that we've seen Diggs go off the board to New England, you may see a Campbell and Cooper and some of these other guys sign before the week is done. All the owners will be in Palm Beach starting Sunday for the NFL owners meeting. So I would anticipate there will be a smattering of signings this week ahead of those meetings.
Well, but that's a boondoggle, isn't it? Bunch of owners in Palm Beach, it's all sitting around drinking Mai Tais.
At the Breakers, which happens to be about a mile away from Mar-a-Lago. So who knows who will visit during the
Oh my gosh,
league meeting?
yeah, that'd be some big time. That's all his people there. That would be a big bunch for him to pull up together. Maybe they have a little marshmallow roast or something. Yeah, I'm interested to see how this all goes, David. This is obviously in my mind a pivotal year for the Cowboys, just because not only because it's the eternal quest to get back to the NFC Championship game or even the playoffs at this point, but because of how the Eagles and the Commanders have progressed, especially this last year. They'll always have the Giants to kick around. But
at least for another year or two, for sure.
Yeah. But this the distance is starting to grow between them and the Eagles and the Commanders. They both, Jaden Daniels is the real deal at quarterback, I think, for Washington, and the Eagles with Howie Roseman, it's just phenomenal the way that the players come and players go, and he always ends up with good players. It's always it's fascinating to me to watch him assemble a roster. And not so fascinating to watch the Cowboys assemble one. We'll see.
And on top of that, you have a first-year head coach who is late in his career and has never been a head coach. And I know people are excited about the staff he's put together, but a lot of them are in positions they haven't been in before. It's the excitement of youth and watching, a young coach grow, and which they haven't hit on a lot, right? They've gone more with the guys who have proven it and plugged them in. So I understand the excitement. This could work, but don't minimize the fact this is, the head coach of this team will be coaching his first NFL, college, any game as head coach in that opener in September.
Yeah, I give Ryan Schottenheimer, at least he's been around, and of course his father was a great coach, and so he's been around and seen it all before. And the fact that he was here already probably helps as well, and maybe that makes it all good. I don't know. I do sign on with the fact that if the Cowboys, get a running back in the draft, they want to lean that way a little bit. As a matter of fact, one of his mentors, Brian Schottenheimer's mentors, is Pete Carroll, who's in Vegas now, and the Raiders would probably be the team that would keep the Cowboys from taking Ashton Genty. Everybody's speculating that Pete would like to have him. He's a little bit like a Marshawn Lynch with a little more versatility and a little more get up and go than Marshawn Lynch had.
Yeah.
Not quite the bully runner that Marshawn was. So I'm all for that type of thing. I think we've seen a resurgence of that in the NFL in the last couple of years. Team that can run the ball. The Cowboys misjudged terribly on that and did not ride that wave when it presented itself. So we'll see what Brian Schottenheimer can do here in this first year, and we'll talk some more in the next couple of weeks about what happens and if they sign anybody else in free agency that would change their trajectory in the draft. But as it is now, I feel like, as you said, in those first 3 rounds, they got to take a cornerback, a wide receiver, and a running back. And I don't know what the order is going to be. The problem is there's lots of running backs, so you can wait until the 3rd round if you wanted to. There's not a lot of wide receivers, and there's probably not a lot of cornerbacks either.
Correct.
So that's going to be that
probably
puts a priority. Yeah, it probably in that
depends on
order,
where the plateau are or where you are, So
yeah, so we'll see how that goes. All right, that's going to do it for the Cowboys segment of our podcast. We're going to move over now and talk about the Rangers, who open on Thursday at Globe Life Field against the Boston Red Sox. Evan, are you still there? Have you fallen asleep on us?
No, I'm fine.
He's excited and ready to go. I want to tell you something, David. I spent a week out there in Arizona with Evan. I mean, riding the roller coaster with Evan is
Was he a little more
always
upbeat than this most days, or is this what you got by the end of spring
no.
training?
This is what we got by the end. He started out really excited when I got there. You know, we went to a nice restaurant. We went to the Fat Ox. It was really nice. It was a good meal. He was really on a high then, and then he just kind of steadily went downhill from there.
Well,
Life with
the
me.
best part of his season's already happened, and that's when he tasted the new foods.
Yes, you tasted the new foods with Sarah Blaskovich. So what was the upshot of all of that, Evan? What's the best new food coming to Globe Life Field?
It's a continual case of whatever they plug in at the Hurtado stand is going to be the best. They've got a great giant baked potato there with I don't know how they're going to load that much brisket in there, but they've got a baked potato that I think is $14.99, and then they've got some smoked wings with like a al pastor sauce, and then it comes with kind of a tomatillo or salsa verde that are really good. And again, I mean, if they can keep that quality control, which they've managed in that stand, it remains one of the elite concessions in all of Major League Baseball. But the wings we had some char on the outside, and the meat was still really juicy. Some of the other things I'm not so sure were huge hits.
They're huge.
Well,
Huge portions.
the
Yeah.
boomstick burrito it's just a dining disaster waiting to happen. It is a 26-inch tortilla, and look, the stuffing is great. The ground beef and the rice and the black beans are all well spiced, and it's covered with nacho cheese. That's great. But it's a burrito is supposed to be something you pick up in your hands. You ain't picking this thing up. This is not getting picked up. And then when you cut into it with a fork, you're either getting a hunk of flour tortilla, or you might get a little thing of rice and beans and beef, but never the two shall mix. It's hard to get a perfect bite there. So that's being sold for merely the Instagram. The other big miss for me was the gumbo or Cajun nachos, which are supposed to be nachos, and instead of your Mexican toppings, you've got gumbo. Um, it just does not work. It basically is a little bit of sausage and chicken and celery
Stewed
sprinkled
okra,
on
was that
top
on
of
top of
some
the
nacho
nachos?
chips with queso. Um, just didn't work for me. I applaud the effort, but sorry.
Yeah. Here's my problem with Hurtados. They need a bigger stand. The line, unless you go early, and of course that's the thing. We're always there early, and so. But there's really, in my mind, it's Hurtados is the first three places you go, and then it's everything else after that.
Yeah, I mean it's that's always going to be the problem, but it's no different than going to any. I would say the line there, even though it gets really long, moves as well as it does at any barbecue spot. So I mean, it's you're signing up to get in a line, whether it would be like a line at Cadillac or a line at Hurtado or a line at Heim or something like that. But the line moves well. It's just that, yeah, if you're there to watch a baseball game, you don't want to stand out on the stands. I will say this, Hurtado does have a second stand up on the upper deck. They only sell the nachos, their brisket nachos, which are huge, and their Oaxaca dog, which is kind of a jalapeno cheddar sausage that's got like a white queso on top. But there is a secondary stand for Hurtado that doesn't get as much traffic.
Okay, that's going to do it for our Rangers segment of the podcast. Maybe we'll have Sarah Blaskovich on to talk about the Rangers. Now,
You
About
asked
the
me questions
rotation.
about food. I answered them quickly and completely. Can we get to the
what?
baseball now?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. He makes it seem like he really wants to talk about
Yeah, it's
baseball when really
us.
all he
It's
wants to do
us. Okay. Okay.
is talk about the food. Okay.
Food
So,
doesn't disappoint me. The Rangers occasionally do.
well, this is true. This is true, Evan. So, the big story in spring training, there were two big storylines. One, what will they do with the rotation? And they finally have come to grips with that. Both of the Vandy boys made the rotation, Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, at least temporarily. We'll see how long and what happens with Patrick Corbin. who was the late signing and who is going to get a little bit, I think, of work. Maybe, Evan, you can update us on that. And then, of course, the question is center field, what they're going to do with Evan Carter. And he was sent down. He will be starting out the season at Round Rock, which me personally, I think that was the right thing to do with him. He clearly looked lost at the plate. It wasn't just against left-handers. He didn't look good against right-handers either. I think he just needs to get things sorted out, and he does that. He comes back, he'll be just fine. It won't hurt him to do this. So, Evan, what is the situation with Patrick Corbin at this point?
Well, he's going to go make. He's agreed to allow himself to be optioned to make 2 starts at AAA Round Rock, with the idea that he would be an option for them come April 11th, which would be the first day he could be recalled. So that's basically where they stand. And look, they're not expecting world-beating stuff from Patrick Corbin. What they need is some innings, because there's real concern that with Jacob deGrom on a pitch count, with Tyler Mahle probably on a pitch count, with Rocker on a pitch count, and with Leiter not having a history of going very deep into games, you're going to need some innings. And Patrick Corbin will stand out there, and if worse comes to worse, get you through 5 innings. He may give up 7 runs, but he'll get you through 5 innings, and that saves you for a night when you can better deploy bullpen arms. I still think the Rangers need to be going out right now, and there are a number of guys who have been released or have taken outs in their contract, and going to as many of those guys as they possibly can and saying, will you go to Round Rock for a month or 6 weeks so that we can have you as a depth option? And at the top of that list for me is Southlake's Ross Stripling. I think he would be the perfect kind of guy, a veteran guy who's also pitched innings. Get him to go down to Round Rock, have him there as insurance, because right now I don't think the Rangers have much depth in this rotation at all. They're counting on 2 rookies who I think have huge upside, but if they get an injury, where do they turn? Where do the Rangers turn at this point?
Yeah, this was a discussion that I had with Chris Young last week when he talked about the mistakes he feels like he made last year when he thought that they would just kind of wait until the second half when Jacob deGrom and Tyler Mahle were both going to be available, and that would kind of ride to the rescue there. And I didn't like that plan last year, and then Chris ultimately didn't like it either. And yet I do think that this year they are kind of walking that line right now. At the very end here, the last 2 appearances by Kumar Rocker, he's been very good. Although it'd be nice if maybe every once in a while he looked over at a base runner and basically just let everybody run free in his last start. I think there were 5 stolen bases in that 4+ innings that he worked. But he did pitch very well against the Royals the other day. 4 innings, 8 strikeouts. Does that sound right?
He pitched well, and again, like, look, I'm sorry, I can't. The last game of spring training, everybody is desperate for it to be over with. I can't put a lot of heft into whatever took place that day. He threw strikes, he got strikeouts. I think he has looked better as spring training has progressed.
It
And
could look worse.
I think the bottom line here is, look, you and I had this argument, Kevin, that you drafted Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker to go into your rotation. The Rangers need help in their rotation right now. It is time to turn the ball over to them. I'd like to actually see those guys be given a legitimate amount of runway, whether that's all of April or even into May. I'd like to see them be given a legitimate amount of runway to make some mistakes, which they are going to make as young pitchers, and have the opportunity to improve.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that. I think if a guy it looks like he's ready, then that's one thing. I think they do believe in Rocker. I think that they think that he has the mental makeup for this, and it's just a matter of him landing that big old. It is. He calls it a curve. I would call it a curve. Nobody else does. It looks like a curveball. They would call it a slider. But when he lands that pitch, and he's got enough of a fastball, he's pretty good. I don't think he commands the third pitch all that well. He said the other day he threw 5 pitches. When I asked him after that last game in surprise that he pitched, it looked like to me 2 pitches that he threw about 90% of the time. But the thing with Jack Leiter, he's got a million pitches, and I think that's part of the problem. When you watch Jack pitch, he gets himself in difficult situations, and there's a lot going on in his head, and I think that's the issue for me, is that to get him to relax a little bit and get compose himself. I think you get a guy like him who already has got so much going on in his head, and if things start to go bad at the big league level, I think that you could really damage his confidence, and that would be a concern of mine. The Rangers have a long history of rushing guys to the major leagues. I'm not saying these guys would be rushed. They're both, what, 24,
Both
25,
25.
26.
Well, Jack will be
So
25 the third week of April.
no question about that. But of course, a lot of that was occupied at Vanderbilt that time. So it's a great program, but it's not the same thing, as working way up through the minor leagues. So yeah, I mean, it's a question of whether they're going to be ready or not. I think both of them will get a couple of starts. Then when Corbin is ready and comes up, one of them will probably go down unless they're both pitching really well and someone else is not. But I do think that's probably what's going to happen there. What about the Evan Carter? Evan and I kind of disagreed about that as well. I felt the same way about Evan Carter that I did about, the Bandy Boys. If he's not ready to go, he's not ready to go. And this is a contending team. And that was Chris Young's point talking to me, was that he felt like last year too many things went wrong. They got out of the gate slow, and they were out of it by the trade deadline, and weren't out of it, but by all intents and purposes, we're out of it. And he felt like that he should have done something, gone in, made some changes, done some different things. Um, uh, that's who he is as a general manager. I don't want to use the term impatient, because impatient implies that you would make knee jerk moves that were not good for the organization. Um, but he isn't a guy who's going to sit around and wait on things, or maybe waiting to see a guy develop at the big league level. I don't think that's where the Rangers want to be at this point anyway, right?
Well, let's just go into the Evan Carter thing for a minute. I think my perspective on Evan Carter was that if he was healthy, he deserved the opportunity to play his way back. What I will say is this: over the last 2 weeks at camp, it became very evident that if he is healthy completely, his swing is not ready. He went 0 for 14 over the final 10 days of camp. I don't care that he went 0 for 9 against left-handers in camp. He can be a full-time player without ever facing a left-hander if he rakes against right-handers. I do think the issue here right now is some concern about both where the swing is and how durable is Evan Carter going to be. He is going to have to go out and play 5 days a week, 6 days a week. They didn't get that opportunity in spring training, and I think they need to see him do that at AAA Round Rock. And I do think that he started to press as spring training went on. He felt the pressure. He heard all the chatter about the left-handed thing, and I think that troubled him. And with good reason. It was probably we probably harped on something that was a small sample size and may not be a real determining factor in whether or not he has a successful career. The Rangers only need to look at Jock Peterson as a guy who doesn't play against left-handed pitching to see that you can be a successful everyday player without doing that. But I think the other thing there is that we just saw bad at bats continue as spring training went on. He looked a little bit passive to me there. Um, there were a lot of at bats that were really 3 or 4 pitches, and that's just not who Evan Carter is. And I think the one thing that Chris Young said in making this decision and announcement on Tuesday was, we need to see the best version of Evan Carter, and right now we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that guy that we saw in 2023. So I get where the Rangers are coming from with this, and it is, after watching the final 10 days of camp, I have to agree that it's the right move. But I also think that he can go down there, and if he can clear his head, uh, and prove he's healthy and get regular at bats for a week or two, he can very easily put himself back in position to be a contributor at the big league level, which is what the Rangers wanted all along. And I think if there's anything from a performance perspective that developed in spring training that was unexpected, it was that the Rangers did not go into spring training thinking that Evan Carter was going to have to play his way onto this team. I think they thought he was on this team. I think to the in great regard, he kind of played his way out, and that was disappointing.
Yeah, well, there's no question about that. But also, I mean, it just kind of raises the point that I'm talking about. If this bothered him so much, what people were saying, I mean, look, it wasn't like people were making fun of him. People just brought it up. The numbers are numbers. Even if it's a small sample size, they are what they are. And if a guy's going to let that bother him that much, then what would it have done to left him on the roster during the regular season to start the season and let him continue to be frustrated? I think it's perfectly natural, but it's like, to me, it's the difference between him and Wyatt Langford. Now, that's two different skill sets, but both two very highly regarded outfielders for the Rangers. Wyatt Langford is a guy that what we've seen so far has made adjustments in season and has been able to perform. Has a really good work ethic. I'm not saying that Evan doesn't have that either, but I do believe that maybe Wyatt's a little tougher mentally and is able to pick up something. Now, look, Wyatt Langford doesn't have some kind of condition that's causing him to have back problems at this point, right? So that's a little bit different thing to have to deal with.
But Kevin, to your point, I'm not, and look, I'm not going to make any comparisons on toughness or any of that. What I will say about this is Wyatt Langford went on the IL last year after struggling in April and May with a hamstring issue that was probably borderline minor hamstring issue, and spent 3.5 weeks on the IL, the last 2 of which were basically working on that swing. And so in a lot of regards, he went through the same thing that Evan did, and got that time to work on the swing at the minor league level, and it did pay off. Now, it'd be great if that was the same guaranteed outcome that the Rangers have with this on Evan Carter, but there's no guarantees on that. I just do think that the hope is that the same thing applies here, that he goes down to the minor leagues, gets himself right in a situation that's a little bit low stress, gets his timing back. And with Wyatt last year, it was an issue where his swing had gotten exaggerated. With Evan, it's a deal where he needs to get his timing back to where he's landing early and making better decisions, and that can be cleared up pretty quickly. So he goes to AAA, gets 3 weeks down there, and maybe at that point in time he's back up in the Rangers' plans.
Yeah, I think that's certainly all still doable. There's no reason to panic about any of this on Evan Carter's part. This kind of stuff happens all the time. Guys have their careers are fits and starts, and sometimes they have to go backwards before they go forwards again, and that's all. It's going to be okay, I think.
No, I'll
So
say this: you wish you had the situation in the rotation that you have in center field, right? You've got Leody Taveras, who the Rangers still believe has star potential. You've got a veteran that you signed late in Kevin Pillar, who is certainly a contributor. You've got Josh Smith, who has the ability to play center field as well. And in worst case scenario, and I don't even want to say worst case scenario, because I think Wyatt Langford can more than adequately play center field. You could always move Wyatt Langford to center field and go there. And you've got Alejandro Osuna, who was the star of training camp, sitting there potentially by midseason being ready to step in. That's a depth situation. You've got great depth in center field. And so even if your number one guy didn't pan out the way you wanted at the start of the season, you're in pretty good shape.
Oh, for sure. They have more options, and that's a good thing. And that's what you have to have, right? You have to, and that's one of the things that Chris and I talked about was that at least I said this. Chris didn't say it. My problem with Jerry Jones has always been his eternal optimism. He doesn't prepare for the worst. You can't assume everything's going to be okay. You have to assume that everything's going to go bad. And what are we going to do when it happens? And so the Rangers have set themselves up with some alternatives, and I think that's good.
Baseball's all about contingencies because the season is so long and things can snowball and last so much longer than you expect. It is all about contingencies.
Yeah. So At this point, I think the interesting thing to me is how the lineup will develop and what we saw, and I think it's probably not going to be much of a surprise at this point. But obviously, you're still going to have Marcus. There was some debate about that, whether Marcus was going to come out of the leadoff spot. That's not happening now with Evan Carter not making the club. So it'll
Well,
be
I think there's still some internal debate about that. I think there is some interest in-house that Wyatt Langford could be, the guy at the top of the order.
Well, I think that'd be fine if I didn't like him batting third. I
Right.
mean, obviously, in the old world, third was your best hitter, right? In the new world, you're trying to get your best hitter up at the leadoff spot and get him as many at bats as possible. That's why Mike Trout hit up near the top of the lineup so much in his career.
If your
Uh,
if your top two offensive threats, if you believe your top two offensive threats are going to end up being Corey Seager and Wyatt Langford, does it matter if it's Seager Langford or Langford Seager?
No, it doesn't. And I don't have a problem with that. At that point, yeah, it used to be that your best fastball hitter was hitting second because your leadoff hitter is going to get on and they're going to throw a fastball because they're trying to work that situation there. So that's why everybody wanted to hit second. Um, so I don't have I like the Simeon Seager Langford. Then I like Jock Peterson hitting fourth. I think Jock had a good spring, and he's got some personality. I think the other day on during one of those games during in the end game stuff, Simeon was asked what's different about this team, and one of the first things he said was Jock Peterson. He said not only is he a good player, he's a good guy, he's fun. The Rangers didn't have much fun in that clubhouse last year. That was one of the issues, is that with Adolis not playing well, with Jonah Heim not playing well, they just kind of sucked all the energy out of the room. And Adolis is supposed to be the heartbeat of that team, and when he is not playing well and he's allowing that to get to him emotionally, he's riding the roller coaster. It's not good for that team. So a guy like Jock Peterson is good for them on a couple of fronts, and it gets them. I think that Adolis really needs to be out of the fourth spot of the lineup. I think that's, I think that I don't think Adolis will ever get back to what he was in 2023. I think if he gets back to what he was in 2022, that's good enough. And I think Adolis hitting fifth is good for this club. And then if Josh Young hits sixth, and then I think at that point, it's pretty wide open about what they might do. Seven,
Well,
eight,
that's also
nine.
where you'll have the bulk of the changes. But look, there's going to be days where Jock is not playing because he won't play against most lefties, and probably on those days, Adolis will hit fourth, and you will
Right.
kind of slide everybody up. But 7, 8, 9 is where you'll have the bulk of the flexibility, the plug and play. So
Yeah.
that will change with any team. It changes on a regular basis.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for the Rangers segment of our podcast. We're going to move over now, a little bit of a potpourri. We'll talk about the Mavericks real quickly. Anthony Davis is supposed to come back Thursday, and we're taping this on Wednesday. David, that's not a good idea, is it?
Well, he played the other day, and I thought in this 27 minutes, he did a pretty good job. Now you'll see he's not going to do the back to back. So the second game back after a prolonged injury is always the one that you're kind of watching. But I still think, look, this trade has been such a disaster. I think to shut down Anthony Davis when he is physically capable of playing here over the final fading, merciful weeks of this season that has unfolded, even if it means you're in the play-in. I mean, for where they are, for how disastrous this trade has been, I think they need to see some tangible benefits from the trade, even though I think we all agree it's not going to be to the level that it needs. But boy, with the mood around this team to just shut down Anthony Davis when he could play and really get nothing in that trade that you can see on the court for the rest of this season, I think it would make for an even uglier offseason. And remember, they do have season ticket packages to sell, which indications are they are running behind on that. A lot of the first options have been denied, anecdotal at this point, but you certainly seem to hear that out there more and more when you look on social media. Fans saying they have no intentions of re-upping. So I really think for the fading, flagging mental health of where this franchise is right now, that I think getting Anthony Davis out there to see what he can do and bring this team is not only just good for the fan base, but I think the players need to see that too to reinforce it. Going, okay, well, next year, clean slate, we can do something with this group. Even if you know it, you still want to see it. When it's just a constant hammering about, what an idiotic trade. Why did you trade away your future? You have to hit. This trade is about lowering the window you're going to have to hit now with this, just to blow off the current, where you are right now. I think can do you more harm than good. So I think we disagree on that. And I know, look, simply from a physical standpoint and where they are in the standings, the argument is, sure, just shut it down, play this out with who's out there, and keep going. But I still believe there is value to your top players, when healthy, playing through situations on the court, to show that they're about the team and they're in this with you. I think that does have some value from a team perspective.
I'm okay with it as long as the Suns keep winning. As long as the
Yeah.
Suns keep winning and end up getting that 10th spot, then I'm okay with Anthony Davis coming back and playing. But not. I don't want the Mavericks to do anything to prolong this season. Let's get it over with and let's move on.
That's a good point too.
Yeah,
Give
I
it
mean,
the
I
lottery.
think that should be the number one priority here, right? Is put the season behind you as fast as you can, because nothing good can happen the rest of the way. You're not going to win the championship. You're not going to go deep into the playoffs. And all you're going to do is prolong the agony of what just happened. The Mavs need to put the season behind them and regroup and figure out exactly what they need to do to get back to some degree of legitimacy.
Could they
Yeah,
petition the league to just default?
Well, I was
like
just going to say that. That was going to be my
the rest of their
suggestion.
games and
Yes.
really, literally just end it now.
Yes.
We quit. That's what I say.
You
I
still
think I
pay
should
all
be
the
the team's new
players. You save
motto.
travel expenses. You
Forfeit the
quit.
rest of the games and send your fans a refund, and you might salvage some goodwill out of this season.
Yeah. we know when to quit while we're behind. Okay. All right. Now let's move over and talking about the NCAA tournament. On my bracket, I don't know about y'all's, but my bracket is busted. Now one side actually is still working, and it's still good. The other side is blown to smithereens. I did pick Arkansas to beat Kansas, and I did pick Texas Tech to beat Missouri. Unfortunately, I said that Arkansas will lose to St. John's, and that's where all I started to go wrong. And I had Memphis. My Final Four, I had Auburn, Memphis, Houston, and Duke. Someone made a point recently and I think it's probably a pretty good one, that NIL, it means the end of the Cinderella. That the teams, the mid-major teams that had a few good players, they could help them to get through the tournament. Those guys are all gone now. They have moved on to the power conferences, and therefore that's why we're seeing very little bit of that. We're seeing a lot more chalk in these in the tournament now than we have in the past. And if that's going to be the case, then that's too bad. That was the whole attraction of the tournament, right? Was the occasional upset that we got. And we're really not seeing much of
Well, you always had enough early too, where it always fed into that perception. You didn't always have it in the final 8 or 4, but you always had enough in different regions over the first 2 rounds of the tournament where it really fed into hey, anything is possible here.
Yeah. And that was always the fun of it. And the odds were always great, right? You got 64 teams. The odds that they're going to have an upset or two are always good. Maybe not so much now. I do think I do think this is Houston's year. I do think that Kelvin Sampson will break through, and Houston will finally win a title, and I think that will be really good for that program. And they play such great defense. What they've always lacked here in the tournament, as well as they have played, is they haven't gotten the kind of play from their star players, the kind of offense that they need. He requires so much of them defensively. It's hard to play two ways, like when you're playing defense at the level they're playing it, with the energy expended. It's like the old days of Milton Richardson and 40 minutes of hell. It's hard to do that all the time, and especially when you're playing in the tournament with all the emotion that goes with that anyway, and the short turnarounds for these college basketball players. So I've got Houston over Duke, or I'm sorry, I got Houston there on the same side. I got Houston over Auburn in the championship game. Well, we'll see. Anybody got a pick of their own?
I did not do a bracket because I'm terrible at them at this point in time, and I can waste my money on other things like the lottery. As I show you my scratch off card from last week where we won $3.
Woo! $3.
Return on investment. How much did it cost?
I will take as my final four Auburn, Alabama, Florida, and Tennessee. Because as we all know, the SEC is a basketball conference now.
Yeah.
I'm down with Bruce Pearl. I've changed my opinion on Bruce Pearl. I'm now a big Bruce Pearl guy.
Well, nothing matters anymore what you did in your past, right? I mean, Kelvin Sampson got run off for the excessive phone calls, and now he's a star coach at Houston. Sean Miller got in all kinds of trouble at Arizona. And, whether that was actually him, but the FBI has one of his former assistants on tape saying that he was paying DeAndre Ayton $10,000 a month, which is chump change now, right? With NIL. So Sean Miller has to spend a little time at Xavier, and now he's the new Texas coach since Rodney Terry was fired.
Well, didn't Florida's coach run into a little bit of a baum boom this season?
I'm not sure what that was, but
didn't he run into some little incident?
I couldn't say it any better than that, but yes, there was something there.
Yeah, there was something. Yeah, pretty much the deal is now, if you can win, we don't care what you do. You can't be doing what that Michigan assistant football coach was doing, clearly. But a lot of this stuff, anything that involves payments to people or over recruiting or whatever you want to call it, it just really doesn't matter anymore. So we'll see what Sean Miller can do at Texas. They got themselves in a bad situation with that Chris Beard deal. Chris Beard was fired, of course, over the domestic abuse charges by his fiance at the time, and then she dropped the charges, of course. That's what always happens in these cases, it seems like. And then Chris Beard was out, went to Ole Miss, and now he's, Chris Beard's a great coach, and Ole Miss is playing well.
And what a great job. Remember that great story I did on how Mark Adams resuscitated the Texas Tech program after Chris Beard left? What a great job Mark Adams has done this year, right?
Maybe that's not Mark Adams anymore at Texas Tech.
What? That was only like 2 years ago. What happened?
That's why you cover baseball,
Oh, well, that was during the lockout, and I was able to go do a big Texas Tech story and do a Josh Young story right before he cracked open his shoulder. So it was all good.
Yeah, that was highly productive.
Good combo,
for those people should really be afraid when they see you coming.
Coach fired, player hurt.
Yeah, program blown up. Yeah, all of that. Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's going to do it for our podcast. We'll be back next week, and we'll talk a little bit more. We'll know what our Final Four is going to be after this weekend, and we will know. Maybe we'll have a better idea of what the Cowboys are going to do in the draft, if they've signed anybody or spent any money or done anything. And of course, the Rangers will be on their way starting Thursday. So from everybody in here to everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.